What's going on, folks? Kendall here with Renos for Pros and Joes, helping you simplify the renovation and remodeling process. On this channel, we do hands-on product tool and gear reviews, as well as renovation tip and strategy videos. So if you're interested in renovation, remodeling, repair, real estate, home improvement, or property maintenance, then subscribe because this channel and this content is for you. So in today's video, as promised, I'm going to be sharing with you 9 factors to consider when trying to select LED recess lights. And the first factor that you want to keep in mind is going to be color temperature. Color temperature is going to be measured in kelvins, which is going to be abbreviated with a K. And so you're going to start on one end, which is going to be more amber or yellow. Typically in LED recess lights, you're going to be on the bottom end somewhere around 2700 K. And that's going to be your most yellow or your most amber colored light. Then you work your way up all the way to the other end of the spectrum, which typically tops out around somewhere in the neighborhood of 6000 K, which is going to be more of a blue colored white light. So this is the wide range of the spectrum. You have a lot of different fixtures that fall in between, anywhere from 3000 K, 3500 K, 4000 K, 5000 K, and you may even see some 4500 K. And so this is the range of the spectrum. One of the main things that you want to keep in mind is just going to be which color temperature is going to best suit your needs. This is a very subjective thing, so it's very difficult to try and advise someone on what color temperature is going to work best for their scenario. If you think about older homes, those houses typically are going to have color temperatures in the 2700 K range. They're going to be more on the yellow to amber colors, is what we think about at grandma's house, or if you've got parents that are older in those type of homes, they've got old fixtures in there, they're going to be more of a yellow colored light. However, one of the things that I do want to caution you on is when you're thinking about color temperature, if you're not able to observe differences in color temperature in person or online to your satisfaction, one thing that I would caution you against is don't automatically assume that just because a color temperature is on the lower end of the spectrum, down in the 2700 to 3000 K range, that particular fixture is going to look or make the room appear to be old or dated, because one of the things that you have to keep in mind is going to be that the brightness of the overall fixture is going to be drastically improved above whatever you may have in the space currently. And that actually brings us to the next factor to consider when you're looking at LED recessed lights, and that is going to be the brightness of the fixture, and that is going to be measured in lumens. Now, most of your LED recessed fixtures are going to be somewhere in the range of 800 to 1000 to 1050 lumens. That's going to be on the top end. If you're going to be incorporating a dimmer switch into your setup, then you can obviously lower those lumens down to a level that is going to be satisfactory for you. Now, one of the other things that I also want to keep in mind and make sure that you pay attention to, that different LED recessed fixtures are going to have different top ends on them. So some are going to have 850 to 800 and some are going to have 1000. That difference you will be able to see with your eye. Now, the difference really that you have to factor in when you're looking at these type of fixtures is going to be, what are you going to be using that fixture for? Do you need the additional 200 lumens? This may make a big difference to someone who's going to be, say, using a room or a space for learning, or they may have a chalkboard in the space, or they may be doing online lessons, or they may be having to write out a lot of things on paper or at a desk. The brighter that fixture is, the more easy it's going to be able to work underneath those settings. And so that's one thing that you want to keep in mind, certainly is going to be the top end of that fixture. The next thing that I want you to think about is similar but not quite the same, which is going to be dimmability. And this goes back to being able to work with a dimmer switch. If you're going to be working with a dimmer switch, when I say dimmability, I'm really referring to your ability to reduce the lumens that are going to be spread over those fixtures, assuming that you've got more than one. And what I mean by that is different fixtures are going to have different levels of ability to dim down. And so regardless of whether or not you're using the same dimmer switch or not, if you are using a dimmer switch and you're trying to hook up several different brands of lights, one of the things that you will notice is that as you draw that dimmer switch down, some of those fixtures are going to be able to get more dim than others. And that's one of the things that you have to really want to pay attention to, because depending on how you plan to use the fixture, if you're trying to set things up to try to replicate a candlelight dinner, and you're going to be using the fixtures a lot more frequently on lower settings, far below 50 or 25% of that fixture's overall brightness, that you're going to want to know and have some reassurance that that fixture is going to have the capability of being able to dim down very, very low. Now, I've personally seen some fixtures that will only appear to really dim down to somewhere in the neighborhood of 25%, regardless of what they're marketed as. And so that's something that may have to be discovered as a trial and error, but just understand that some fixtures can be dimmed all the way down till you almost can't see any light at all, while others you may only have a small range to play within, from complete brightness down to, let's just say, somewhere around 25 or 30%. And that, once again, many of the fixtures are going to advertise that they can get down to 5%, but in true application, I've seen some that actually don't do nearly as good of a job as others. Which brings us to our fourth factor, which is going to be the size of the recessed LED light. Now, the most common size is going to be the 6-inch, and the main reason I believe for that is the fact that recessed lights have traditionally been most popular in the 6-inch size, even in the can style. And so if you're going with a 6-inch, it's going to have the same look from the floor looking up as the traditional recessed lights. It's just going to be substantially brighter, and you're going to have a wider range of color temperature. However, recessed lights in LED also come in smaller sizes. You can get them in 4 inches, and I've also recently seen 8-inch LEDs. So one of the things you want to keep in mind when you're trying to select a size is going to be the design for your lighting layout, for your ceiling or wherever you're going to be installing your light fixtures, because a smaller LED fixture is going to look less crowded. If you're in a space that has a smaller footprint, smaller square footage, the smaller LEDs are going to look less crowded on the ceiling versus having the standard size 6-inch ones. When you're looking at the different size of the LED fixtures, you also want to pay attention to the lumens on those, because traditionally the smaller the fixture is, the less bright they are overall. The next factor that you want to keep in mind is going to be bulb lifespan. Now, many of these LED fixtures have extremely long lifespans. Many of them are over 20 years. The one thing that you want to pay attention to is going to be looking at how they're calculating those years, because some may be calculating those years based on the average use estimated per day at being somewhere around 4 hours, while others may be closer to 6 or 7 hours. And so you want to pay attention to do that math on your own and extrapolate out and determine, make sure that you're comparing apples to apples when you're talking about true hours of usage. Which brings us to our next factor to consider. We're at number 6 now, which is going to be your replacement plan. Now, the LED recessed lights is relatively new technology. They've been out for approximately maybe 4 or 5 years. And this is an evolving technology that's constantly being improved upon. And the reason why I mentioned a replacement plan is because until we get to the point where people have had these fixtures installed for 15 to 20 years, or they've had them installed for the maximum number of estimated hours that the light should run, only then will we know how well these lights are going to perform over the full duration of their lifespan. And so one of the things that you want to keep in mind with regards to that is going to be that with technology constantly changing as rapidly as it does, you want to have some type of plan for how you plan to move forward in the event that some of these fixtures begin to burn out prematurely. And this is going to kind of go back to your price point, as well as your overall goal, as well as the number of fixtures that you have installed in a particular setting. So some fixtures in this classification of lighting may only cost $7 or $8 a piece, while others may be $30 or $40 a piece. And so the way that you choose to replace these fixtures if one burns out may differ depending on the price point at which you're at with regards to the fixtures that you have installed. The main thing you want to keep in mind is that if you're going to go with an overall replace all of them strategy, then it doesn't really matter if you've got a bunch of extras or not. However, if you're planning to want to just replace 1 or 2 fixtures, if you have 1 or 2 of them burn out over the duration, then you want to just make sure that when you're shopping that you purchase some extras to have set aside if and when you have a failure of one of these fixtures. The reason why I mentioned buying additional or extra fixtures is that, as I mentioned earlier, technology is constantly changing, and as it changes, those fixtures will change. And so it may not be as easy to go back and buy 1 or 2 fixtures for replacement down the line, because they may have changed the design of the fixture. The color temperature may not match exactly to the one that you've got. And so it's just better or easier to be safe to have a few extras that are the exact same as the ones that you have installed, so that you have peace of mind down the line. If you do have 1 or 2 failures within your space, within your property, then you've got some set aside that you can just easily pop out and keep going. The next thing that you want to be concerned with is going to be dimmer switch compatibility. Now, most of your LED recessed light fixtures are going to have a list of compatible dimmer switches. Now, these lists are not always completely up to date. That's one of the things that you want to make sure that you pay attention to, because sometimes the switches that they have listed on their list may not be easily accessible. You may not be able to buy them in the store. You may have to struggle to even find them online. And so sometimes this boils down to trial and error. So frequently you want to read as many reviews on dimmer switches as possible to try and determine which one is going to have the highest likelihood of being compatible with the LED recessed lights that you've selected. Now, one other thing that I want to mention with regards to LED recessed light dimmer switch compatibility is going to be the overall LED wattage on that dimmer switch. This is going to be more of a factor if you're going to be installing 7, 8, 9, 10 LED recessed lights in the ceiling. This is where you're going to be concerned with your wattage capacity for that switch or that dimmer. And so you may have to upgrade into a dimmer switch that has a higher LED wattage capacity than just the standard run-of-the-mill one once you begin to have a large number of LED recessed lights in the ceiling. So you just want to pay attention to the wattage that's on each one of those fixtures. And you need to go ahead and multiply up based on the number that you have there in that space that's going to be on that dimmer switch. The next thing that you want to consider is going to be the damp rating for that fixture. Now, this is not going to be as big of a deal if you're going to be using it in a family room or a living room or dining room or bedroom. But if you plan to use these fixtures in a bathroom, or you can use them inside of a shower enclosure or above a jacuzzi tub or air tub or something like that, you want to be concerned with the rating on the fixture. And you're going to want that damp rating if you're going to use it in the bathroom. All of these fixtures do not fall into that category because there's a huge range of different types of LED recessed light fixtures, and they're constantly coming out with new ones, and the technology is changing. So you just want to pay attention to that when you are considering which fixtures to purchase. The next consideration that you want to look at is going to be the insulation contact rating. Now, this is going to particularly pertain to fixtures that are going to be installed in ceilings, and they're going to come in contact with insulation. You want to pay close attention to this because this is going to determine how far your insulation has to be spaced away from that fixture. Some fixtures may say that they are rated for direct contact with insulation, while others are going to stipulate a specific distance that the fixture needs to be away from the insulation. So that's something that you want to pay close attention to. The next tip or factor that you want to consider, and this is more of going to be a bonus, is just going to be to determine how you want to use that fixture and where you want to use it. When you answer those 2 questions, that is going to help you check a lot of these other boxes off very quickly and help you come to a decision that you can live with. Hopefully you guys find this video informative. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you all on the next one.